Aloha kakiaka e Hawaii, this is Poka Lainui, and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri on radio station KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. Welcome to the program. Well, this morning there's just a number of new issues to raise. Last night, I should say, that we talked quite a bit about abortion and the legitimacy and the appropriateness of abortion and under what conditions they would be considered appropriate. We also discussed in the first half hour of the program. Now, what was it? Abortion took up most of the discussions, but we talked about the presidential debates and the foreign policies that will be discussed in that debate in this week. And I came to the conclusion that both Obama and Romney, both candidates, were heading in the wrong direction. It was just a question of how badly their foreign policy was directed. And that Mitt Romney was Bush plus. He was even worse than George Bush, while Barack Obama is less than worse. He is Bush minus, so he's a little better than George Bush, but that whole direction itself is completely wrong. In the following discussions, we talked about abortion, and abortion, looking at abortion in the many different ways. I won't be going into that discussion. If you would like to call and continue with that matter this morning, you can give me a call. Our telephone number is 524-1080. We'll put you on the radio and see what you have to say with regards to that matter. The morning newspaper talks about the dwindling emergency reserves that worries a federal monitor dealing with rail and the funding in rail. It seems that a report had been concluded several months ago but not released by the city until recently, and the report that has been released reviews that there are concerns about spending before a ruling by the Hawaii Supreme Court halted the work. The article is on the front page of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser, this morning's article, this morning's newspaper, and it says that newly released reports show federal monitors were warning that contingency cash reserves for the $5.26 billion Honolulu Rail project had dropped below accepted control levels even before a costly ruling by the Hawaii Supreme Court halted construction in August. And you note that oftentimes people are blaming the Supreme Court for increasing the rail project, and it is increasing the project. But even before that, there was concern about the project having cost amounts that was what appears to be beyond control. That disclosure in documents related to the city's application for federal funding underscores continuing concerns about the size of the cash cushion maintained by the largest public works project in Hawaii's history. The report released by the city last week and earlier this month shows that consultant Jacobs Engineering Group Incorporated was sounding the alarm as early as April about the rapid use of cost contingency funds. Jacobs was hired by the Federal Transit Administration to oversee the Honolulu Rail project, and the consultant noted that the city launched an effort earlier this year to make engineering and other changes to beef up the project's contingency cash reserves. That effort began months before the unexpected August 24 Supreme Court decision that halted all rail construction. Now, the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation estimates the new delay caused by that court ruling will cost the city an extra $64 million to $95 million, which are expenses the city had essentially not anticipated. Now, there's a much longer discussion of this issue in the inner pages of the newspaper, and I will not go through any of those issues. Other than that, there's an interesting article with regards to female candidates at the for U.S. Senate, and in that article it appears, or it discloses, two major changes, or major not concerns but news points. The first is that female candidates seems to be, or with a number of candidates, it seems to be that the U.S. Senate will be increasing the number of females that it has in the Senate this coming year. And secondly, well, let me just read the article. When when Patty Murray first won election to the U.S. Senate in November 1992, women were a rarity, holding only 2 seats. The Washington State Democrat arrived for her new job to discover there was no bathroom for women near the Senate chamber. They had to build one when 6 of us arrived in '93, said Murray, laughing at the thought. Today, 17 of the 100 senators are women. And after leading a 2-year recruiting campaign to elect more women, Murray predicts that 2013 will be a historic year, bringing a record high number of female senators to Capitol Hill. One thing is certain: 5 closely contested races involving women whom Murray recruited to run in Massachusetts, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Hawaii will go a long way toward determining which party controls the Senate next year. Overall, party leaders are backing 11 Democratic women as candidates this year, the most in history. That includes 6 incumbents who are considered shoo-ins or are leading in the polls. A 12th Democratic woman is running in Maine, but without the endorsement of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. On the Republican side, 6 women are running this year in Nebraska, New Mexico, Hawaii, Connecticut, and the Democrat stronghold of California and New York. But 2 longtime incumbents, Olympia Snowe of Maine and Kay Bailey Hutchison of Texas, are retiring. Jennifer Duffy, who analyzes Senate races for the Cook Political Report, says there's a 60% to 65% chance that the Democrats, who now have 53 of the 100 seats, will keep control of the Senate in 2013. Given where they started, things do look more promising, Duffy said. In a poll of Republican insiders released by the National Journal on September 28, only 4% saw the party's chances of winning control of the Senate as high. The poll called the outlook a stunning drop in optimism among Republicans. I'm going to stop there and just summarize by saying 2 important trends are appearing. The first is that women are increasing by quite a bit in the U.S. Senate as compared to where they had been. And second is it's becoming a quite acceptable conclusion to say that, in fact, the Democrats are going to retain the U.S. Senate, or control of the U.S. Senate, by a majority. So we'll see how or what those results turn out to be. Our telephone number here is 524-1080 should you choose to discuss any of these issues. And and I had intended on going into some other issues based on newspaper articles that I came across for last night. So give me a call if you want to get on the radio and express your opinion on any of the matters we discussed last night or this morning. Now, continuing with our discussion, looking at the national races, but looking here at Hawaii and what's happening in that national race, we have former Governor Linda Lingle challenging Mazie Hirono. Let's see, on Thursday, I'm trying to read an article to explain why she voted. This is Mazie Hirono, Lingle challenging Hirono, asking why she voted for the Budget Control Act of 2011, which raised the debt ceiling and avoided government default, but also created the possibility of automatic spending cuts to national defense. So Lingle is trying to make that an issue and trying to sort of whack Hirono for voting for the Budget Control Act. Now, I thought Lingle is supposed to be a Republican wanting to control the budget. But when it comes to cutting national defense, of course, the Republicans are against cutting national defense, which was included in this Budget Control Act. Automatic cuts to federal programs are scheduled to take effect in January unless Congress and the White House take other action to help with the federal deficit. The potential cuts were included in the law to press Congress toward a bipartisan compromise on deficit reduction. Lingle said the automatic cuts could put the nation's defense at risk. So how could you go along, regardless of who voted for it or not? Why didn't you do the right thing? The Republican asked during a 1-hour U.S. Senate debate on PBS Hawaii. It was either that or the country goes over the economic cliff, Hirono, the Democrat, responded. Hirono blamed Tea Party-backed House Republicans for pushing the nation toward a default by refusing to raise the debt ceiling without spending cuts and deficit reduction. The debate, moderated by political analyst Dan Boylan, had a loose format that often allowed the candidates to talk over each other, avoid direct answers, and meander between issues. Boylan tried to keep the tone conversational, but the discussion was often unfocused. And I would expect that even in some of the answers in the presidential debate, they were meandering all over the place and not focus on the questions themselves. Lingle now says that, like Hirono, she would not consider raising the retirement age in Social Security, contradicting a statement in late August that she would consider a gradual one-year increase in conjunction with some type of recognition for workers in physically demanding jobs. Lingle now says that, like Hirono, she would not support a nominee to the Supreme Court who would overturn Roe versus Wade, the landmark 1973 ruling that legalized abortion. Lingle had said previously that no single issue would determine her vote. "You're right, I have a litmus test," Lingle said. If someone walked in and said, "Hey, if you appoint me to the court, I'm going to overturn Roe versus Wade," I'd have to say, "I'm sorry, you haven't passed the litmus test," and I would not support them. Hirono, rather than blur the partisan lines, has sought to brighten them. She had consistently tied Lingle to more conservative national Republicans who have fought Obama and would remove Hawaii. Senator Daniel Inouye as chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee if they take control to the Senate. And Hirono says this is what this election is about. Who will gain control of the United States Senate? There seems to have been a bit of additional haggling or rankling between the two candidates. Let's see if I can find that. Let's see. I don't want to talk about Big Bird. You've heard enough of that. Well, I don't think I can find it. Or it may have been the issue of Big Bird. So it seems that Mazie Hirono is leading Linda Lingle in that particular race, and it also seems that the Republican National Committee has essentially pulled their funding out of Hawaii to support Linda Lingle, believing that they're not going to win that race, so they may as well place more effort or more funds in campaigns where there's a closer possibility of winning. In other words, they've sort of escaped, or they have left Linda Lingle out on the lurch. Here's the other issue that I was thinking of. U.S. Representative Mazie Hirono has asked Lingle at a debate on Tuesday whether she still believed Bush was the, quote, greatest president, given his admiration or his administration's handling of the Iraq War and Hurricane Katrina. Lingle challenged Hirono to produce a citation for the statement. It's interesting she doesn't say, no, I don't think he was the greatest. She asked for, well, can you prove it that I said it? Where's your citation? Here it goes. I would ask the Congresswoman Hirono cite where that was said, because it's not a statement I ever made, Lingle said. Certainly after 9/11, when President Bush faced an attack on our nation, I thought he did an outstanding job of stepping forward, of uniting the nation, of developing a plan. But Lingle insisted that the quote she mentioned never happened. Hirono said she was astounded by the denial. Democrats have used Lingle's greatest president assessment of Bush against her for a decade, mostly to undercut her image as a moderate and independent, not beholden to national Republicans. Asked by Big Island Now, an online news site, about the Bush comment, the Lingle campaign responded in September by saying that, by all accounts, Lingle made the reference in 2002 in the context of Bush's response to the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. The Bush reference was not reported by the Advertiser or the Honolulu Star Bulletin in news coverage of Lingle's remarks at the state GOP convention in 2002, but appeared a few days later in Shapiro's column. As far as I know, I was the only media type to quote it, and my column was a source of subsequent Democratic citation of what she said, Shapiro said in an email on Wednesday. Now this I'm reading from the Honolulu Star Advertiser that appeared Friday at page A26. So, was George W. Bush the greatest president, according to Linda Lingle? Well, she did make the statement. She herself tends to be backing away from that statement, just as the Republican Party seems to be backing away from Linda Lingle and paying attention to other races. If you have any comments, give me a call at 524-1080. While I was reading that, I noted that Kumuhula has passed away, Ellen Castillo, and her Hawaiian name was Ku'ulei Aloha Poina Ole Puka Ikapua Okalani Castillo, and her halau's name was Halau Hula, or Halau Hula o Puka i Kapua o Kalani of Kailua. and Waimanalo. Well, she was a founder, and the halau was of Kailua and Waimanalo. I noted that she studied under Bella Richards and Lani Kalama. Her let's see, yeah, she studied under those two. So she has passed on, and there have been many attributes to her teaching the hula, and her gracefulness in dancing too. So to the students and family of Ellen Castillo, our condolences to her. As I read the article and came across Lani Kalama's name, I had some personal relations with Lani Kalama, Auntie Lani, and this was and I was just talking about her in relations to Auntie Pilahi Paki. Auntie Pilahi had not known Auntie Lani Kalama until one day Auntie Pilahi was walking past a pawn shop, and having passed that pawn shop, she saw a pair of, or not a pair, but she saw pahu, or drums, hula drums, at the pawn shop. And so she stopped and she purchased the drums. And she attempted to find out whose drums these were, because usually a chanter will not get rid of their drums unless they were in very desperate need, it appears. So Auntie Pilahi purchased the drums and then went out to find out whose it was. She eventually came across the owner of the drums, or the original owner, and found out that it was Auntie Lani Kalama, and so returned the drums to Auntie Lani, and that was how they had come to know each other. That's my understanding, and as a result, Auntie Lani became Auntie Pilahi's chanter in many of the events that Auntie Pilahi acted for or performed for. All right, so if you do have a wish to call us, our telephone number here is 524-1080. We'll give you a chance to address any of the issues that I have already spoken about. Since we have been talking about politics, we have been talking about more generally local politics, the Star Advertiser comes out with their choices for city council, and in the various districts, let's say they have District 1, District 5, and District 6. In District 1, they are endorsing the term, or they are endorsing the candidate Kimberly Pine as the best choice to represent the region for District 1, being Kapolei, Makakilo, Leeward Coast generally, Eva Beach. Kimberly Pine is running against Tom Berg. Tom had been working in the office of Kimberly Pine previously, and while she was in the House of Representatives, Tom Berg ran for city council and was successful in the city council race. I think he surprised himself as well as many others when he won that race. And as a result, people started looking askance at Tom Berg because of his approach, his what is the word for it? His overindulging in alcohol in one case, and his disruptiveness, or what is seen as disruptive, in speaking up at the city council. For me, I found that Tom Berg actually has the guts to speak up, and as you listen to at least his viewpoint, I would have to side with Tom Berg on the issues and his willingness to speak on behalf of his constituents. So I would disagree with the Star Advertiser's view that Kimberly Pine is a better choice. I think Tom Berg has, over the last, especially the last 6 months, have shown himself to be a real fighter for the district of the Leeward Coast. Second, District 5, the City Council is endorsing Ann Kobayashi, and Ann has been a veteran of the council for many years, and I would agree that Ann Kobayashi should be retained in the council. And next is District 6, the vacancy left by Tulsi Gabbard. They are endorsing Carol Fukunaga, who is running against John Yoshimura. John Yoshimura is a former councilman, and he has experience. However, he had left that office under a cloud, having left the scene after hitting a parked car in 1999. I know Carol Fukunaga. I don't know John Yoshimura as well as I do Carol Fukunaga. And watching her and her work in the Senate, in the Hawaii State Senate, I would agree with the with the Star Advertiser's choice of Carol Fukunaga as being the one to choose over John Yoshimura. And yet I have high regards for the work that John has done. Okay, with that said, that covers the local issues that I wanted to cover. Let's go to some music.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, Kupa ama hope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka paka. Mane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave, Koku ana honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano, Pa'apu me ke one o ka kuhi hewa. Aolea e kau I ka pulima, Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi, Po'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka. Aole mākoa e mina mina, I ka pu'u ka